What's going on, everyone? Blue here at Bluebears Games. This week's long video, non-short video, will actually be a 60-card Blues Budget Battle Brew. The reason for that is specifically just because I am in the midst of a order for six different orders for Commander decks. They're taking up a lot of time, and I haven't finished them yet, and I'm waiting for some cards to come in. So in the meantime, I'm going to do 1 or 2 weeks worth of 60-card battle decks just to fill this time in, and then I'll have a whole bunch of Commander decks to go after that. Now, as far as this deck goes, this week we're going to be doing Izzet Drakes. This is a remake of a video I did previously. Now that I have the ability to edit, have lighting, stuff like that, I am going to redo the video because this is one of my offerings for the cons, for the Facebook page, and all that stuff. So it's Izzet Drakes, blue-red, flying, lots of Spellslinging. Let's get into the deck and I'll show you what it is. If you've seen the previous deck build video before, it's a little different, but not too much. It has some better cards, some worse cards. No worse cards, just a lot of better cards. So we start off with all the creatures that are going to be similar to something like this. So we start with Bloodwater Entity. So 1 red, 1 blue, 1 of any, 2/2 for a flyer. Has Prowess, and Prowess just means whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 at the end of turn for each one you've cast. So if you cast 2 spells, it gets +2/+2, so on and so on. And then when it enters the battlefield, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library, and this deck is a spell-slinging, mostly instance deck, so that's a very big bonus. I got 2 of them in there. Spellheart Shimmers, just like in the previous version, so again, same casting cost, red, blue, white. It's a star 3, flying trample. Don't see a lot of flying tramplers out there. Its power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Again, you're going to be doing a lot of spell casting. I got a play set of those. Enigma Drake, just like the previous version, is a blue, a red, and 1, just like the other 2. Also flying, star 4, and its power is equal to the number of instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard as well. I got 2 of them, and then the last creature in here is going to be a Crackling Drake. 2 red, 2 blue for a star 4 flyer. Its power is equal to the number of instants and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. And when he enters the battlefield, draw a card. Now, his ability is important because some of the stuff in here may have flashbacks, so it'll go into exile. Or you can upgrade it to have stuff like that, so they'll actually count for his power. All right, after that, we're going to go into the spells. There's a bunch of them here. We're going to start with some damage. This is essentially going to be a counter burn style of deck, but with some creatures that benefit from that style of play. So we start with Shocks. Obviously, we're on a budget, so it's not going to have some of the more expensive stuff in here, but I'll go over that in the upgrade section in a little bit. Incinerates. Shock is a 1 to cast instant that deals 2 damage to any target. That's how it reads. Incinerate's a 2 to cast instant that deals 3 damage to any target, and then a creature that's dealt damage this way and dies can't be regenerated. Magma Quake is in this deck, it's really good. So it's kind of like Earthquake, where it deals X damage to each creature without flying. This one also deals it to each Planeswalker instead of each player. It's an instant as well instead of a sorcery, and it's 2 red and X instead of 1 red and X. So everything in here flies, so it doesn't hit your guys. Frantic Inventory, so these are a 4 of automatically just because they're good card draw. Back in the day, there was another card exactly like it, so it's 2 to cast instant, draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Frantic Inventory in your graveyard. So, for instance, you cast it the first time, you draw a card, and then there's nothing in your graveyard to add to it. The next one you cast, you'll draw 1 for the Frantic Inventory, and then the 1 that's in your graveyard, and so on and so on. So, lots of card draw there. This is the card I was mentioning that is similar to it. This is an older one. This is the newer version of it, but this was actually first. Accumulated Knowledge, same thing. Draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Accumulated Knowledge in your graveyard. So lots of card draw. So technically you can go draw 1, draw 2, draw 3, then draw 4 for 2 mana for both of these. All right, up next we got our foil that we're going to put in there for the day. And I'm sorry, my cat keeps walking past the camera and blocking my light. Thank you, Fred. Anyway, this is the foil for the deck. Anybody who has seen my explanation video of my Blues Budget Battle Brews, you'll know that every deck I make that's a 60-card deck, it has at least 3 rares, and then the last spot of a rare is going to be either a rare foil, or a mythic. So this is the rare foil. It's 1 red, 1 blue, 2 of any. It's an instant, and reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and separate them into 2 different piles, however you want, and then an opponent gets to choose one of those piles, and you put that pile into your hand and the others into your graveyard. It's sort of like Fact or Fiction, but in red. All right. Again, this was counter burn style, so we're going to do some counter magic. So it's still casting spells to buff up creatures when the spell goes to your graveyard, and also the Prowess guy, which is Bloodwater Entity. So we start with Essence Scatter. Obviously, this is Blue's way of removing creatures from the board, not letting them hit it, so I got a play set of those. Negates, so for those nasty non-creature spells, you can counter them. Got 4 of those. Ionize is another counter spell, so it's 1 red, 1 blue, 1 of any. You can counter any spell, and then it'll deal 2 damage to that spell's controller, so it's counter burn specifically in 1 card. Teleportal, it's good for the overload part. So target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn and is unblockable until end of turn. And then that's for the 1 red, 1 blue. Then you can overload it if you want instead which is 1 red, 1 blue, 3 of any, and instead now you remove the instance of all instances of the word target with the word each. So now each creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn and is unblockable until end of turn. Yes, flyers are a little bit easier to get damage through, but sometimes your opponent's playing some type of a flying deck, so it helps get them through. It's a spell, so it busts all your guys, and it makes them unblockable, so it's a good way to end the game. And the final non-land card will be Firemind's Research. So it's an enchantment. Now, I understand that it's not an instant, a sorcery, or anything that benefits from it. It does, the actual abilities on this card benefit greatly from the amount of spells you're going to cast. So a red, a blue. It's an enchantment that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you put a charge counter on it, and then you have 2 abilities here. You can pay a blue and 1 and remove 2 of those counters to draw a card, which is always good for fuel. Always need fuel in a deck like this. This is going to start casting spells left and right. Then you've got the other ability, which is also possibly a Game Ender, which is a red and 1. Remove 5 charge counters from it, and it'll deal 5 damage to any target. That could be a creature, that could be a planeswalker, that could be a player. So it can help you win the game free extra damage, so it's always good. And then the lands are pretty simple. We're on a budget, and I will go over some somewhat better options for more expensive lands in the upgrade section in a minute. We got Swiftwater Cliffs. I do these because they let you gain a life and they're dual lands. Even though they come to play tap, they still work. And then the rest are just islands and mountains. And if you want to know the exact amount of each, it's probably 8 of each. But if you want to know the exact amount, or you want to just see this in deck list form, I'll have the link to the MTG Goldfish account that I have the deck specifically for this build on the website. Now, what happens here, and I have to explain this real quick before I go into any upgrades, is when these decks sell, I just make another version that's very similar to them. Sometimes exact, sometimes not. It'll play exactly the same. So if you're watching this video, but you're trying to buy a version of this deck or any of the other decks that I do a video on, and it's not the exact version, trust me, it's close enough. It may even be more improved. It's just, I don't want to make a video every time I make a new version when I sell a deck. So just keep that in mind when it comes to that. So that's the deck for the week. From here, I'm going to do a small little upgrade section. It's going to be very quick, and then we'll get you out of here. Okay, so as far as the upgrades go on the creature side, we're going to be looking at the ones that are already in here. So you want to get it 4 copies of each one in there for the Spell Heart Chimera, the Crackling Drake, and the Enigma Drake. You want them to be 4 ofs if at all possible. After that, we're going to look at some spells. So the spells are pretty much just trying to get the burn and the draw as cheap as possible. So for instance, I mentioned earlier that there's cheaper ones than Shock. You go with a Lightning Bolt instead because it's one that casts instant, deals 3 damage, so you use something like that. A Wild Slash is really good in this deck. And then, of course, you've got a thing like Chain Lightning, which has been reprinted in the Jumpstart set recently, so it's always good to have that. And it's the one that casts, deal 3 damage. Your opponent can throw it back at you, but then you can throw it back at them. For the card draw, you can look at stuff like Brainstorm, because it's one that casts and it lets you draw 3 cards. Sure, you have to put 2 back, but at least you get to look at 3 more cards. You got Consider, that's been recently reprinted and changed on the part where it's now got another ability. It's got an ability that was written out at first and now it's named. Then you've got Faithless Looting, and Faithless Looting is good because it has that flashback ability, so you can use it, get the buff, and then use it again for the flashback cost. And again, it helps with Crackling Drake because when it gets exiled, he still gets the buff. You've got something really cool, the Arcane Infusion card that came out recently, Midnight Hunt. Really good. It's kind of like card draw, but it's putting them in your hands. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but it lets you put instants and sorceries in your hand. You've got Galvanic Iteration is a good option to put in here as well. And then here's an oldie but goodie. Izzet Charm is a great one. It has a whole lot of different abilities that you can choose from, and whichever one matches the situation you're facing. And lastly, we're going to do some lands, like I said earlier. So some lands that you can look at are things like I don't want to go with dual lands as far as the OG dual lands, but we'll definitely look at shock lands like Steam Vents, the check land like Sulphur Falls, and the newer ones that just came out that are okay, especially on a budget, things like Storm Carved Coast. So it can come into play untapped, and it'll do you very well that way. I mean, you're going to have mostly basics in here anyway. So that's the video I have for you this week. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or just want to talk about the deck or any of the other decks and videos that I create, you can go ahead and contact me at bluebearsgames.online on Facebook. You can email me at bluebearsgames@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you when I have an opportunity. Or you can leave a comment in the section below, and I'll get back to you in that way. And then if you want to talk further after that, you can go ahead and contact me one of the other 2 ways. On top of that, if you were looking to help support the channel, there are a couple ways you can do so. The first way is actually just out of generosity. You can go ahead and do some donations to me. And the way you can do that is through PayPal at paypal.me/BlueBearsGames, at Venmo at BlueBearsGames, or through Cash App at $BlueBearsGames. The second way that you could help support the channel, this one actually gets you something for your money. You can go ahead and take a look at all the decks that I've made, and you can make a purchase of 1 or 2, or maybe even 5. I have 60-card decks available for sale, and I also have Commander decks available for sale. So if you're looking at them, you can go ahead and take a look at any of my stuff on the Facebook page or through the Facebook Marketplace. They're all available there. You can see the logo that you need to look for, and all those are available for purchase. You can contact me at any time, and we'll go ahead and talk about how you can acquire one of those. And the last option is the freest of the three options. You can do me the favor of subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. That way, when I get to my 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, somebody else will be paying for the bill. You can also like the video. Apparently, the analytics show that the more people who like your video, the more viewed it gets. So that would help me as well. Or you can share it out on your social medias, whatever one you have, and other people will eventually start subscribing and watching more videos. So all three options are great and will help support the channel. That is my time for the week. I want to thank you for watching. Please join me again next week for another deck build video, and I will see you all then. Have a good week.